Samudra entered the garden at Balagandi alone and began reciting verses from Srimad Bhagavatam. He then took the opportunity to massage the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The Lord, in his ecstatic love for Krishna, immediately embraced the king and thus bestowed mercy upon him. When there was an offering of prasadam in the garden, Lord Chaitanya also partook of that. After this, when Lord Jagannath's Rath car stopped moving, King Prataparudra called for many elephants to pull it, but they were unsuccessful. Seeing this, Lord Chaitanya began to push the car from behind with his head, and the car began moving. Then the devotees began pulling the car with ropes. Near the Gundicha temple is a place known as Aitota. This place was fixed up for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to rest in. When Lord Jagannath was seated at Sundarachalam, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw it as Vrindavan. He performed sporting pastimes in the water of the lake known as Indradyumna. For 9 continuous days during the Rath Yatra, the Lord remained at Sundarachalam. And on the 5th day, he and Sarup Damodar observed the pastimes of Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune. During that time, there was much talk about the pastimes of the gopis. When the Rath was again being drawn and the chanting resumed, 2 devotees from Kulinagram, Ramanand Vasu and Satyaraj Khan, were requested to bring silk ropes every year for the Rath Yatra ceremony. So again, this is chapter 14 of the Madhya Lila of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, and Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami gives his own very wonderful Mangalacharana here. He says, Gaura Pashyannatma Vrindaihi Shri Lakshmi Vijayotsavam Shrutva Gopi Rasullasam Krishna Premna Nanartasaha. Accompanied by his personal devotees, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to the festival known as Lakshmi Vijayotsava. There he discussed the super excellent love of the gopis. Just by hearing about them, he became very pleased and danced in great ecstatic love for the Lord. Jaya Jaya Gaura Chandra Shri Krishna Chaitanya Jaya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Dhanya. All glories to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, known as Gaura Chandra. All glories to Lord Nityananda Prabhu. All glories to Advaita Acharya, who is so exalted. Jaya Jaya Shri Vashadi Gaura Bhakta Gan. Jaya Shrota Gana Jana Gaura Pranathan. All glories to all the devotees, headed by Srivas Thakur. All glories to the readers who have taken Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as their life and soul. So, this, Prabhupada has given us some context in the chapter summary, that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is in Puri, and it is the Rath Yatra time. As you know, Rath Yatra takes quite some time. There's a beginning yatra that goes to Sundarachala, better known as Gundicha, and then there's a return Rath Yatra, which takes Jagannath back to his temple in Puri proper. So now the Lord is on his way to Sundarachalam. Sundarachalam. There are 2 hills in Puri. Not really hills, but they call them hills. Nilachala, the blue mountain, that is Jagannath's temple. And Sundarachala, the beautiful mountain, that is Lakshmi Devi's temple, Gundicha. Little ways up the road. Not so far, walking distance. So every year at Puri, the Lord goes there at that time. So, Pratap Rudra Maharaj had been given instructions. He was very eager to meet with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya gave him instructions how he could do that. He said, if you dress like a Vaishnava, in disguise, in other words, not in your royal dress, but go in disguise, and then you can meet Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the garden. So that's what he's mentioning here. Pratapruta was so humble that with folded hands, he first took permission from all the devotees. Even though Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya had asked him to do this, still, he wanted to get the blessings of all devotees. Then, with great courage, he fell down and touched the lotus feet of the Lord. This is in the garden. There. As Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu lay on the raised platform with his eyes closed in ecstatic love and emotion, the king very expertly began to massage his legs. The king began to recite verses about the Ras Leela from Srimad Bhagavatam. He recited the chapter beginning with the words, Jayati Teyathikam. This we all know. This is chapter 31 of the 10th canto, Gopika Gita. Shunite Shunite Prabhur Shanto Shapar. Bolo Bolo Boli Prabhu, Bole Bar Bar. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he heard these verses, he was pleased beyond limit, and he said again and again, go on reciting, go on reciting. As soon as the king recited the verse beginning with the words Tava Kathamritam, the Lord arose in ecstatic love and embraced him. Well, upon hearing the verse recited by the king, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, you have given me invaluable gems, but I have nothing to give you in return. Therefore, I'm simply embracing you. After saying this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began to recite the same verse again and again. Both the king and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were trembling and tears were flowing from their eyes. What is that verse? Tava kathamritam tapta jivanam kavibhiriritam kalmashapaham shravanamangalam srimad atatam bhuvi garananti te bhurida janaha. O my Lord, the nectar of your words and the descriptions of your activities are the life and soul of those who are always aggrieved in this material world. Anyone aggrieved out there? These narrations are transmitted by exalted personalities, and they eradicate all sinful reactions. Whoever hears these narrations attains all good fortune. These narrations are broadcast all over the world and are filled with spiritual power. Those who spread the message of Godhead are certainly the most munificent welfare workers. This is again Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, chapter 31, text number 9. So, after reciting the verse, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu immediately embraced the king and cried, Purida, you are the most munificent. You are the most munificent. At this point, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not know who the king was. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy was aroused because of the king's previous service. Therefore, without even asking who he was, the Lord immediately bestowed his mercy upon him. How powerful is the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Without even inquiring about the king, the Lord made everything successful. Did Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu really not know that this was Pratapruta Maharaj? Of course he knew. He's omniscient. But this is his Leela. The Lord is acting in this way. So, finally, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, who are you? You have done so much for me. All of a sudden, you've come here and made me drink the nectar of the pastimes of Lord Krishna. The king replied, my lord, I am the most obedient servant of your servants. It's my ambition that you will accept me as the servant of your servants. I'm just going pretty quickly because we are to concentrate on Hera Panchami, which is not just yet. So I'm only reading the translations. At that time, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu displayed some of his divine opulences to the king. Here it's stated, Tobe Mahaprabhu Taned Aishwarya Dekhailo, Karehin Nakohibe Enished Korilo. What does it mean? He told the king not to disclose this to anyone. And Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is also not disclosing that to us. What kind of Aishwarya has the Lord displayed to King Pratapruta? We don't really know, but he goes on to say, although within his heart, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu knew everything that was happening, externally he did not disclose it, nor did he disclose that he knew he was talking to King Prataprudra. So I said, this is Leela. Nato natyataro yatha. The Lord comes and he acts like an actor on a stage. An actor in a play or in a movie, he never breaks his character. You never get any indication of his actual life. It's all natya. It's all a play. And so Krishna performs his leelas like that. But the devotees know. How do they know? Because they get his mercy through service. So seeing the Lord's special mercy upon King Prataprudra, the devotees praised the king's good fortune and their minds became open and blissful. Aninmitamane. And Prabhupada points out in the purport that devotees are never envious when another person clearly gets the Lord's mercy. We don't become envious. Vaishnavas are non-envious. Submissively offering prayers to the devotees with folded hands and offering obeisances to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the king went outside. After this, Varninath Rai brought all kinds of prasadam, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted lunch with the devotees. The king also sent a large quantity of prasadam through Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Ramanand Rai, and Varninath Rai. The prasadam sent by the king had been offered at the Balagandi festival and included uncooked milk products and fruits. It was all of the finest quality, and there was no end to the variety. There were curd, fruit juice, coconut, mango, dried coconut, jackfruit, various kinds of bananas, and palm fruit seeds. There were oranges, grapefruit, tangerines, almonds, dried fruit, raisins, and dates. There were hundreds of different types of sweetmeats like Manohara Laddu and Amrita Gupika and various types of condensed milk. There were also papayas and sharavati, a type of orange, and also crushed squash. There were also regular cream, fried cream, and a type of puri made with cream. Harivallabha Senoti, Karpura Malati, Dalima Manicha Laddu, Navata Amriti. There were also the sweets known as Harivallabha and sweets made of Senoti flowers. Karpura flowers and Malati flowers. In certain places we get this. Banana flower. In South India you can get this sabzi. And West Bengal, Odisha also, they have more green things, so we get great variety. There were also pomegranate sweets made with black pepper and sweets made with fused sugar and amriti jalebi. So there were lotus flower sugar, a kind of bread made from urad dal, crispy sweetmeats, sugar candy, fried rice sweets, sesame seed sweets, and cookies made from sesame seeds. Are you getting hungry? There were also sugar candy sweetmeats formed into the shape of orange, lemon, and mango trees and arranged with fruits, flowers, and leaves. So it's not only culinary art, it's visual art as well. There were yogurt, milk, butter, buttermilk, fruit juice, a preparation made of fried yogurt and sugar candy, and salty mung dal sprouts with shredded ginger. We've had some of these things. There were also various types of pickles, lemon pickle, berry pickle, and so on. Indeed, I am not able to describe the variety of food offered to Lord Jagannath. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami finally admits his inability to describe everything. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw half the garden filled with varieties of prasadam, he was very satisfied. Indeed, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was fully satisfied just to see how Lord Jagannath had accepted all the food. Then there arrived 5 or 7 loads of plates made of the leaves of Ketaki tree. Each man was supplied 10 of these plates, and in this way the leaf dishes were distributed. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu understood the labor of all the kirtan chanters. Therefore, he was very eager to feed them sumptuously. Anyone who plays mridanga or sings kirtan, you know very well this feeling. All the devotees sat down in lines, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally began to distribute the prasadam. But the devotees would not accept the prasadam until Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took it. Sarup Goswami informed the Lord of this. Sarup Damodar said, "My Lord, please sit down. No one will eat until you do." At that time, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sat down with his personal associates, and every one of them fed. He had every one of them fed very sumptuously until they were filled akanta, up to the neck. Bhojan karailo shabake akanta puriya. After finishing, the Lord washed his mouth and sat down. There was so much extra prasadam that it was distributed to thousands. Following the orders of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Govinda, his personal servant, called for all the poor beggars who were unhappy due to their poverty and fed them sumptuously. Observing the beggars eating prasadam, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu chanted Hari Bol, and he instructed them to chant the holy name. As soon as the beggars chanted the holy name, Hari Bol, they were immediately absorbed in ecstatic love of Godhead. In this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu performed wonderful pastimes. Is it not wonderful? One day you're poor and wandering around, wondering where your next meal is coming from. The next day, a devotee of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu invites you in for prasadam. And as soon as you hear the Lord chanting Hari Bol, you experience love of Godhead. What a good fortune. We should hope someday we can enter these pastimes. Outside of the garden, when it was time to pull Jagannath's car, all the workers called Gaudas tried to pull it, but it would not move forward. Gauda. When the Gaudas saw that they could not budge the car, they abandoned the attempt. Then the king arrived in great anxiety, and he was accompanied by his officers and friends. The king arranged for big wrestlers to try to pull the car, and even the king himself joined in, but the car could not be moved. Becoming even more anxious to move the car, the king had very strong elephants brought forth and harnessed to it. The strong elephants pulled with all their strength, but still the car remained at a standstill, not budging an inch. As soon as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard this news, he went there with all his personal associates. They then stood there and watched the elephants try to pull the car. The elephants, being beaten by the elephant goad, were all crying, but still the car would not move. The assembled people cried out, "Alas, Hahakar." At that time, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu let all the elephants go free and placed the car's ropes in the hands of his own men. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then went to the back of the car and began to push with his head. It was then that the car began to move and roll along, making a rattling sound. Anyone who's ever seen Jagannath Puri Rath Yatra, or any Rath Yatra for that matter, you can just picture this. Indeed, the car began to move automatically, and the devotees simply carried the ropes in their hands. Since it was moving effortlessly, they did not need to pull it. When the car moved forward, everyone began to chant with great pleasure, Jai, Jai, and Jai Jagannath. No one could hear anything else. Ananda Karaje Loka Jai Jai Dhwani, Jai Jagannath Vayara Nahi Shuni. In a moment, the car reached the door of the Gundicha temple. Upon seeing the uncommon strength of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all the people were struck with wonder. Chaitanya Pratap dekhi loke chamatkar, Jai Gaura Chandra Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Ei Mata Kola Hala Loke Dhanya Dhanya. The crowd made a tumultuous vibration, chanting Jai Gaura Chandra Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya. Then the people began to chant, wonderful, wonderful. Seeing the greatness of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Prataprudra Maharaj and his ministers and friends were so moved by ecstatic love that the hair on their bodies stood on end. All the servants of Lord Jagannath then took him down from the car, and the Lord went to sit on his throne. Subhadra and Balaram also sat on their respective thrones. There followed the bathing of Lord Jagannath and finally the offering of foods. While Lord Jagannath, Lord Balaram, and Subhadra sat on their respective thrones, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his devotees began to perform Sankirtan with great pleasure, chanting and dancing in the yard of the temple. Anande Mahaprabhu Premuthailo Dekhi Shavaloka Prem Sagare Bhashilo. While Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was chanting and dancing, he was overwhelmed with ecstatic love, and all the people who saw him were also flooded in the ocean of love of Godhead. Amazing pastimes. In the evening, after finishing his dancing in the yard of the Gundicha temple, the Lord observed the Arati ceremony. Thereafter, he went to a place called Aitota and took rest for the night. Aitota is a short distance away from the Gundicha temple. For 9 days, 9 chief devotees, headed by Advaita Acharya, got an opportunity to invite the Lord to their homes. During the 4 months of the rainy season, the remaining devotees extended invitations to the Lord for 1 day each. In this way, they shared invitations. For the 4-month period, all the daily invitations were shared among the important devotees. The rest of the devotees did not get an opportunity to extend an invitation to the Lord. Since they could not get 1 day each, 2 or 3 devotees combined to extend an invitation. These are the pastimes of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's acceptance of invitations. After taking his bath early in the morning, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would go to see Lord Jagannath in the temple. Then he would perform Sankirtana with his devotees. By chanting and dancing, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu induced Advaita Acharya to dance. Sometimes he induced Nityananda Prabhu, Haridas Thakur, and Achyutananda to dance. Sometimes Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu engaged Vakreshwar and other devotees in dancing, chanting, and dancing. This Vakreshwar Pandit, I think today is also his disappearance day, if I'm not mistaken. Very famous devotee. He once danced for 72 hours continuously, Vakreshwar Pandit. So here he is also in Puri, taking part in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Jagannath Rath Yatra pastimes. 3 times daily, morning, noon, and evening, he would perform Sankirtan in the yard of Gundicha temple. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that is. At this time, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu felt that Lord Krishna had returned to Vrindavan. Thinking this, his feelings of separation from Krishna subsided. Radha Shange Krishna Lilaye Haila Gyane E Rashe Magna Prabhu Haila Apane. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was always thinking of the pastimes of Radha and Krishna, and he remained personally merged in that consciousness. There were many gardens near the Gundicha temple, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his devotees used to perform the pastimes of Vrindavan in each of them. In the lake named Indradyumna, he sported in water. The Lord personally splashed all the devotees with water, and the devotees surrounding him on all sides also splashed the Lord. This reminds me of that time Srila Prabhupada came to Brahmanda Ghat here in Braj. Brahmanda Ghat is the place where Krishna as a child ate dirt, and Mother Yashoda demanded, Mukhamudghadayati, please open your mouth and let us see whether it's true what your friends are saying, that you ate dirt. And we know the rest of that story. But Srila Prabhupada went there one time and all the devotees were taking bath. In those days, the Yamuna was pure. When I first came to Vrindavan in 1978, you could throw a coin into the Yamuna and watch it sink all the way to the bottom and still see it on the bottom of the Yamuna. But since then, there have been times when a 2-foot-high blanket of soap suds totally cover all the water in the Yamuna, from bank to bank, all the way upstream, all the way downstream. I actually saw this once at Brahmanda Ghat. It was terribly depressing. If you try to take a palmful of water and offer back to the Yamuna, the water is sticky. Anyway, Srila Prabhupada, he didn't want to go in because it was cold. When you're old, you don't like it when it's cold. But Srila Prabhupada saw the devotees having so much fun, so he decided to do the same thing. And then Prabhupada, the devotees were pouring water on him also like this. Puri also, Srila Prabhupada did the same thing. Anyway, so they were playing like this in the water with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. While in the water, they sometimes formed one circle and sometimes many circles, and while in the water, they used to play cymbals and imitate the croaking of frogs. Sometimes the two would pair off to fight one another in the water. One would emerge victorious and the other defeated, and the Lord would watch all this fun. The first sporting took place between Advaita Acharya and Nityananda Prabhu, threw water on each other. Advaita Acharya was defeated, and he later began to rebuke Nityananda Prabhu, calling him ill names. Sarup Damodar and Vidyanidhi also threw water upon each other, and Murari Gupta and Vasudev Datta also sported in the same way. Yet another duel took place between Srivas Thakur and Gadadhar Pandit, and yet another between Raghava Pandit and Vakreshwar Pandit. Thus they all engaged in throwing water. Indeed, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya engaged in water sports with Sri Ramanand Roy, and they both lost their gravity and became like children. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw the exuberance of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and Ramanand Roy, he smiled and spoke to Gopinath Acharya. Tell the Bhattacharya and Ramananda Roy to stop their childish play, because they are both learned scholars and very grave and great personalities. Gopinath Acharya replied, I believe that one drop of the ocean of your great mercy has swelled up upon them. A drop in the ocean of your mercy can drown great mountains like Sumeru and Mandara. Since these two gentlemen are little hills by comparison, it's no wonder that they're being drowned in the ocean of your mercy. Logic is like a dry oil cake from which all the oil has been extracted. The Bhattacharya passed his life in eating such dry cakes, but now you've made him drink the nectar of transcendental pastimes. It is certainly your great mercy upon him. After Gopinath Acharya finished talking, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu smiled, and calling for Advaita Acharya, made him act like the Sheshanaga bed. Lying down upon Advaita Prabhu, who was floating on the water, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu demonstrated the pastime of Sheshashayi Vishnu. We have a Sheshashayi Vishnu not far from Vrindavan. Manifesting his personal potency, Advaita Acharya floated about on the water carrying Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This reminds me, if you ever go to Tiruvananthapuram in the extreme south, Kerala, Trivandrum, and visit the Ananta Shayana temple there, Ananta Padmanabha Swami temple, famous temple. In that temple, there's a small shrine of Krishna also. And on the wall there, you will see one of those old Southwest Indian paintings that you see only in places, only in Kerala, really, I've seen it. With Balaram lying on the ground and Krishna lying on top of Balaram, and Mother Yashoda standing next to them and looking at them and trying to figure out what are they doing. Given the context in the temple of Ananta Shayana Swami, devotees can immediately understand what's going on, and yet Yashoda cannot understand what are they doing. She can't put two and two together because she is in Maya. What kind of Maya? Yoga Maya. That's the good Maya. Just like you have good cholesterol and bad cholesterol. So there's good Maya and there's bad Maya. We're all in bad Maya. We're in Mahamaya. We're quite happy to be without Krishna, even though it can't be done, in fact. But we have this illusion that now we finally escaped. This is our disease, heart disease. But the devotees in the spiritual realm, especially the Nitya Siddhas, they're called Ragatmika devotees, eternally Nitya Parishadas of Lord Krishna. They don't suffer from this kind of Mahamaya. Instead, they are thoroughly submerged in Yoga Maya. No chance that they'll come up. So, anyway, that is Yashoda's position. And here we see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also performing the same pastime in the Indradumna Sarovar near Gundicha. After sporting for some time in the water, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu returned to his place at Aitota, accompanied by his devotees. Paramananda Puri, Brahmananda Bharati, and all the other chief devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took their lunch at the invitation of Advaita Acharya. Whatever extra prasadam was brought by Vaninath Rai was taken by the other associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In the afternoon, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to the Gundicha temple to visit the Lord and dance. At night, he went to the garden to take rest. The next day, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also went to the temple of Gundicha and saw the Lord. Then he chanted and danced in the yard for some time. Accompanied by his devotees, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then went into the garden and enjoyed the pastimes of Vrindavan. There were multifarious trees and creepers in the garden, and they were all jubilant to see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Indeed, the birds were chirping, the bees were buzzing, and a cool breeze was blowing. As Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu danced beneath each and every tree, Vasudeva Datta sang alone. As Vasudeva Datta sang a different song beneath each and every tree, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu danced there alone in great ecstasy. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then ordered Vakreshwar Pandit to dance. And as he began to dance, the Lord began to sing. The devotees like Swarup Damodar and other kirtan performers began to sing along with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Being inundated with ecstatic love, they lost all consideration of time and circumstance. After thus performing pastimes in the garden for some time, they all went to a lake called Narendra Sarovar, and there enjoyed sporting in the water. After sporting in the water, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu returned to the garden and accepted prasadam with the devotees. This is Mahaprabhu's Leela. You do kirtan, you cool off in the water, you take prasadam, then you start kirtan again. For 9 continuous days, his lordship Sri Jagannath Deva stayed at the Gundicha temple. During this time, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also stayed there and performed his pastimes with his devotees that have already been described. Now, the garden of his pastimes was very large and was named Jagannath Vallabha. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took his rest there for 9 days. Knowing that the Hera Panchami festival was drawing near, King Prataparudra attentively talked with Kashi Mishra. Who was Kashi Mishra? Temple in charge. He said, tomorrow will be the function of Hera Panchami, or Lakshmi Vijaya. Hold this festival in a way that it has never been held before. This festival, as we heard earlier, it's called Lakshmi Vijayotsava, the victory celebration of Lakshmi. Why? Why does it have a name like this? We'll get to that. Purport. The Hera Panchami festival takes place 5 days after the Rath Yatra festival. Lord Jagannath has left his wife, the goddess of fortune, and gone to Vrindavan, which is the Gundicha temple. Due to separation from the Lord, the goddess of fortune decides to come to see the Lord at Gundicha. The coming of the goddess of fortune to Gundicha is celebrated as Hera Panchami. Sometimes this is misspelled as Hara Panchami among the Atibadis. Atibadis are one of 13 unauthorized sects who claim to be Gaudiya Vaishnavas. They're Sahajiyas, more or less. So the word Hera means to see and refers to the goddess of fortune going to see Lord Jagannath. The word Panchami means the 5th day and is used because this takes place on the 5th day of the moon. Mohotshava Korotai che Vishesha Shambhar Dekhi Mahaprabhu Jaichi Hai Chamatkar. King Pratap Rudra said, hold this festival in such a gorgeous way that upon seeing it, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will be completely pleased and astonished. Not very easy thing to astonish God, but this was Pratap Rudra's intention. He said, taking as many printed cloths, small bells, umbrellas, and chamaras as there are in my storehouse and in the deity's storehouse. Collect all kinds of small and large flags and ringing bells. Then decorate the carrier and have various musical and dancing parties accompany it. In this way, decorate the carrier, that is the Rath cart, Lakshmi's Rath cart, very attractively. Lakshmi has a palanquin really. Any respectable lady, Srila Prabhupada elsewhere writes in Chaitanya Charitamrita, she will not go out in public and open without a palanquin. He said even his mother used to do this. There's a name for it, Asurya Pashya, a woman who is never seen even by the sun. These are the items of culture. So Lakshmi Devi certainly was the most cultured woman in all existence. She was of this class. So Maharaj Pratap Rudra is telling his servants, please decorate and celebrate in this wonderful way. You should also double the quantity of prasadam. Make so much that it will surpass even the Rath Yatra festival. Rath Yatra festivals, you have to have a lot of prasadam. And Maharaj Pratap Rudra wanted this festival of Lakshmi Ji to be even more grand than the Rath Yatra. Lakshmi Devi ki jai. Arrange the festival in such a way that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu may freely go with his devotees to visit the deity without difficulty. Pratah Kale Mahaprabhu Vijaganalaya Jagannatha Darashana Kailo Sundarachale Jaya. In the morning, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took his personal associates with him to see Lord Jagannath at Sundarachala. Then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his personal associates returned to Nilachala with great eagerness to see the Hera Panchami festival. Kashi Mishra received Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with great respect, and taking the Lord and his associates to a very nice place, he had them seated. Atiti Mukhya. After taking his seat, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to hear about a particular mellow of devotional service. Therefore, mildly smiling, he began to question Sarup Damodar. Although Lord Jagannath enjoys his pastimes at Dwarakatham and naturally manifests sublime liberality there, still, once a year he becomes unlimitedly eager to see Vrindavan. Vrindavana Shamai Upavangan Taha Dekhivare Udkantita Haiman. Pointing out the neighboring gardens, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, all these gardens exactly resemble Vrindavan. Therefore, Lord Jagannath is very eager to see them again. Externally, he gives the excuse that he wants to participate in Rath Yatra festival, but actually he wants to leave Jagannath Puri to go to Sundarachala, the Gundicha temple, a replica of Vrindavan. The Lord enjoys his pastimes day and night in various flower gardens there. But why does he not take Lakshmi Devi, the goddess of fortune, with him? This is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's question. He's leading us up to a conclusion. We should know this. Sarup kohe shuno prabhu karana ihar Vrindavana kridate Lakshmi nahi adhikar. Here in Vrindavan, in Bilvavan, to be specific, there's an old temple of Lakshmi Devi just across the Yamuna River. It's managed by Gaudiya Vaishnavas. And it's said that at this place, Lakshmi Devi was performing austerities for many, many, many years, long time. What was her austerity meant for? Usually people perform austerities to get some good karma, maybe for moksha. What could Lakshmi Devi possibly want? She already has moksha, she already has everything. Madhvacharya in his Dwadasha Stotra says, Srishti Sthiti Pralaya Sarga Mahavibhute Vritti Prakashaniyamavrita Bandha Mokshaha Yasya Apanga Lava Matrata Ujjita Sa Shri Yat Kataksha Balavati Ajitam Natosmi. He's offering his obeisances unto Lord Vishnu. Lord Vishnu is called Ajita. Ajita means nobody conquers him. But it's ironic because he's talking about by way of glorifying the Lord, he's actually spending the whole verse glorifying Lakshmi Devi, Madhvacharya. He's in that Aishwarya Bhava. What does he say about Lakshmi Devi? Just a sidelong glance of this goddess of fortune is enough to affect what? Srishti, the creation of the cosmic manifestation. Sthiti, the maintenance of that creation. Maintaining things is harder than creating and destroying them. And the pralaya, the destruction, also her glance affects all these three things. Sarga, the secondary creation. Mahavibhuti, all the wonders that we see within this secondary creation. We are living in the secondary creation, for your information. That means the 14 planetary systems. And what else? Vritti, your occupational duties, or your profession, if you will. Prakasha, your enlightenment. Niyama, your discipline. Bandha moksha, your bondage, karmic bondage, and your liberation. All these things are affected just by the sidelong glance of Lakshmi Devi. How powerful she is. But why are we saying this? Because this Lakshmi Devi has to perform austerities in order to get into the Ras Leela of her husband in his cowherd boy form. When Lord Vishnu is actually at home, he's Lord Krishna. Lakshmi Devi, she's official. This is Krishna's PR department. When he has to deal with the conditioned souls, when he has to yada yada hi dharmasi glanir bhavati bharate ityadi, he has to rectify the demons, he has to protect the devotees, he has to, all these things that Vishnu does. Universes coming out of his pores, adi, adi, adi. In this form, the Lord is dealing with the external creation, or at least the Vaikuntha planets, but even there he remains in this formal identity. Mr. President. So, at home though, Krishna is simply Gopal. And what about Lakshmi Devi? She has heard so much about the Lord's Ras Leela, and specifically all these gopis. She wants to take part in that very special, intimate, rustic, informal, blissful realm where only prema rules everything. There's no formalities at all, nothing Aishwarya about it, everything Madhurya. That's what Lakshmi wants. And so she has done many, many years of tapasya, but she was unsuccessful in getting into the Raslila. This is how we interpret, at least, Madhvacharya's unintended irony. Achitam natosmi. The Lord is not conquered. Who is conquered? Lakshmi is conquered. Who can conquer Lakshmi? Is she conquered by Lord Narayan? I don't think so. Here in this pastime, she's coming to get Jagannath. She's an angry wife, feeling neglected. She's very mad, and she wants to go bring him home. She doesn't know what he's doing with who over there in Gundicha. So she cannot conquer the Lord, actually. But somebody does, and that is Jayashri. Jayashri. Jayashri means Srimati Radharani. Why is she called Jayashri? Because only Radharani can conquer Lakshmi. Radharani can conquer Lakshmi. She can draw Krishna's attention even when Krishna is with his wife in the Puri temple, Jagannath. He's there in Dwarka with Rukmini and Satyabhama and all the other queens, but in his mind, he's always thinking about Vrindavan. And so he wanted to go. He went to Gundicha and he's taking his time there. Now Lakshmi is mad and she's coming to get him. So I don't want to spoil the plot. Let's continue. Sarup Damodar replied to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's query about why the Lord didn't take Lakshmi to the Gundicha temple. My dear Lord, please hear the reason for this. Lakshmi Devi, the goddess of fortune, cannot be admitted to the pastimes of Vrindavan. In the pastimes of Vrindavan, the only assistants are the gopis. But for the gopis, no one can attract the mind of Krishna. The Lord said, using the car festival as an excuse, Krishna goes there with Subhadra and Baladev. All the pastimes with the gopis that take place in those gardens are very confidential ecstasies of Lord Krishna. No one knows them. And we also don't know them, really. We hear these things, but we don't really know. Since there's no fault at all in Krishna's pastimes, why does the goddess of fortune become angry? This is the second question. First question, why she didn't accompany Jagannath to Gundicha? We know he wants privacy in Vrindavan with the gopis. And since there's nothing wrong with what Krishna is doing, why is she angry? Now Sarup Damodar has to reply. It is the nature of a girl afflicted by love to immediately become angry upon finding any neglect on the part of her lover. While Sarup Damodar and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were talking, the procession of the goddess of fortune came by. She was riding on a golden palanquin carried by 4 men and bedecked with a variety of jewels. Very opulent. The palanquin was surrounded by people carrying umbrellas, chamara whisks, and flags, and it was preceded by musicians and dancing girls. Maid servants were carrying water pitchers, chamara whisks, and boxes of betel nuts. There were hundreds of maid servants, all attractively dressed and wearing valuable necklaces. This is, after all, the goddess of fortune herself. Alokika Aishwarya Shange Bahu Parivar Kriptahaya Lakshmi Devi Aila Sinhadwar. Oh, we can picture this. In an angry mood, the goddess of fortune arrived at the main gate of the temple, and Puri temple that is, accompanied by many members of her family, all of whom exhibited uncommon opulence. When the procession arrived, the maidservants of the goddess of fortune began to arrest all the principal servants of Lord Jagannath. The maidservants bound the servants of Jagannath, handcuffed them, and made them fall down at the lotus feet of the goddess of fortune. Indeed, they were arrested just like thieves who have all their riches taken away. Purport: by his divine grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. When Lord Jagannath starts his car festival, he gives assurance to the goddess of fortune that he will return the next day. When he does not return, the goddess of fortune, after waiting 2 or 3 days, begins to feel that her husband has neglected her. She naturally becomes quite angry. Gorgeously decorating herself and her associates, she comes out of the temple and stands before the main gate. All the principal servants of Lord Jagannath are then arrested by her maidservants, brought before her and forced to fall down before her lotus feet. When the servants fell down before the lotus feet of the goddess of fortune, they almost fell unconscious. They were chastised and made the butt of jokes and loose language. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's associates saw such impudence exhibited by the maidservants of the goddess of fortune, they covered their faces with their hands and began to smile. Sarup Damodar said, there is no egoistic pride like this within the 3 worlds. At least I have never seen or heard of it. Damodara Kohe. Aiche manera prakar. Trijagate kaha nahi dekhi shuriyar. When a woman is neglected and disappointed, out of egoistic pride, she gives up her ornaments and morosely sits down on the ground, making lines on it with her nails. This is the classic depiction in the Shastras, Nayika Ved Shastras. I have heard of this kind of pride in Satyabhama, Krishna's proudest queen, and I've also heard of it in the gopis of Vrindavan, who are the reservoirs of all transcendental mellows. But in the case of the goddess of fortune, I see a different kind of pride. She manifests her own opulences and even goes with her soldiers to attack her husband. Purport: after seeing the impudence of the goddess of fortune, Sarup Damodar Goswami wanted to inform Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu about the super excellence of the gopis' loving affairs. He therefore said, my lord, I've never experienced anything like the behavior of the goddess of fortune. We sometimes see a beloved wife becoming proud of her position and then frustrated due to some neglect. She then gives up caring for her appearance, accepts dirty clothes, and morosely sits on the ground and draws lines with her nails. We've heard of such egoistic pride in Satyabhama and the gopis of Vrindavan, but what we see in the goddess of fortune here at Jagannath Puri is completely different. She becomes very angry with her husband and attacks him with her great opulence. She takes an army with her. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, please tell me of the varieties of egoistic pride manifested in Vrindavan. Just see, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is not even interested. Practically, it doesn't seem that he's interested very much in Lakshmi Devi, despite the fact that Sarup Damodar Goswami has just described what she's doing, and he's seeing it in front of them. Sarup Damodar replied, the pride of the gopis is like a river flowing with hundreds of tributaries. The characteristics and modes of love are different in different women. Their jealous anger, that's man, also takes on different varieties and qualities. It's not all one, my friends. Everything is full of variety. Everybody is different. Everyone has their own rasa. And Krishna is so hungry after that rasa, which is unique in each individual, which only each individual can give him. You cannot get it from anywhere else. We are created like that. So Sarup Damodar Goswami is suggesting this. When they come in man, it takes on different forms. Lakshmi's man is very different from Srimati Radharani's man. It is not possible to give a complete statement about the different types of jealous anger manifested by the gopis. But a few principles may serve as an indication. There are three types of women experiencing jealous anger. Sober women, restless women, and women who are both restless and sober. This is easier in Bengali, actually. Mane keho hai dhira, keho to adhira. 18 bhede keho hai dhira dhira. So there's dhira, there's adhira, and then there's dhira dhira. Those who are sober, those who are agitated, and those who are mixed. When a sober heroine sees her hero approaching from a distance, she immediately stands up to receive him. When he comes near, she immediately offers him a place to sit. The sober heroine conceals her anger within her heart and externally speaks sweet words. When her lover embraces her, she returns his embrace. Even she's mad at him. The sober heroine is very simple in her behavior. She keeps her jealous anger within her heart. But with mild words and smiles, she rejects the advances of her lover. The restless heroine, however, sometimes chastises her lover with cruel words, sometimes pulls his ear, and sometimes binds him with flower garlands. The heroine, who is a combination of sobriety and restlessness, always jokes with equivocal words. Sometimes she praises her lover, sometimes blasphemes him, and sometimes remains indifferent. Heroines may also be classified as, this is three more types, Mutha madhya pragalbha, tina naikara bhed, Mutha nahi jane mane vaitatya vibhed. Heroines may be classified as Mugdha, captivated, Prabhupada translates it. Madhya, that means intermediate, and pragalbha, that means impudent. The captivated heroine, Mugdha Naika, does not know very much about the cunning intricacies of jealous anger. She's innocent, Mugdha, Boli Bali. The captivated heroine simply covers her face and goes on crying. She's very straight, direct. When she hears sweet words from her lover, she's very satisfied. That pacifies her. Both the Madhya and Pragalbha heroines can be classified as sober, restless, and both sober, restless. So we heard about Dhira, Adhira, and a combination of those two. That we get in the intermediate and the Madhya Naikas and the Pragalbha Naikas. We get these. This is all classical stuff. Vriti Kala, Naika Bhed. You can find this kind of information very elaborately described in Ujjwala Nilamani by Srila Rupa Goswami. It is a sequel to the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which exclusively focuses only on Madhurya Rasa and all its tremendous variety. So we're hearing a little bit of that. Some of these heroines are very talkative, some are mild, and some are equipoised. Each heroine, according to her own character, increases Sri Krishna's loving ecstasy. So it takes all kinds. Not everybody has to fit one mold. Everyone is an individual. And Krishna likes that. We should keep this in mind. We don't always have to become like other people. You can't. So, although some of the gopis are talkative, some mild and some equipoised, all of them are transcendental and faultless. They please Krishna by their unique characteristics. Even in Bhagavatam we find this, that Krishna tells Uddhava, Paraswabhava karmani na prashamse na garhayet. Kyon? He says, because he said you should not criticize nor praise the nature of another person, conditional or otherwise. Why? Because Vishvam
Hare Krishna, Vasanta Prabhu, are you able to hear something?
I am not able to hear, but I am able to meditate, Prabhuji. The festival. And prasadam.
Yeah, Prabhuji, I think he will rejoin.
Hare Krishna.
तो जो भक्त हिंदी भाषी भक्त जुड़े हैं उससे हम लोग क्षमा चाहते हैं समय की कमी होने के कारण, और चूंकि प्रभु जी पढ़ रहे हैं चैतन्य चरितामृतम से, इसलिए आज हम लोग हिंदी में अनुवाद नहीं कर पा रहे हैं। और लेकिन हम लोग प्रभु जी के बिंदुओं को नोट कर रहे हैं और आपके साथ में फिर हम शेयर करेंगे। लेकिन सबसे विनती है कि चैतन्य चरितामृतम जिसके पास हिंदी में है, मध्य लीला का 14वां अध्याय, उसका अध्ययन कर सकते हैं। प्रभु जी वहां से ही बोल रहे हैं। और आज जो रथ यात्रा का उत्सव होने वाला है वो रणछोड़ कृष्ण प्रभु जी के निवास पर है। So today we'll be celebrating this Rath Yatra festival as part of this our week, Rath Yatra festival week. So today Lord Jagannath Ratha has reached to रणछोड़ कृष्ण प्रभु जी house and we can have a wonderful darshan now. तो अभी जब प्रभु जी फिर से ज्वाइन करेंगे, उनकी क्लास के बाद हम लोग, प्रभु जी आ चुके हैं, फिर हम रथ यात्रा में आएंगे। Vasanta Prabhu, can you make him co-host, please?
Hare Krishna, can you hear me now?
Yes, Prabhu. Welcome back, Prabhu.
Sorry for the interruption. I don't know what happened. But what was I saying when you lost me?
Prabhu, you were narrating from that 11th, that verse actually, from the Dhamma.
Sorry?
That verse you were narrating about from the 11th canto.
Yes. Anyway, the point is, it takes all kinds, either in the material world or in the spiritual world. Variety is there for Krishna's enjoyment. So everybody has their place. Everything has its time and place. Okay, so Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu felt unlimited happiness upon hearing these descriptions, and he again and again requested Sarup Damodar to continue speaking. Sarup Damodar said, Krishna is the master of all transcendental mellows and taster of all transcendental mellows. And his body is composed of transcendental bliss. Krishna is full of ecstatic love and always subordinate to the love of his devotees. The gopis are very much experienced in pure love and in the dealings of transcendental mellows. There is no flaw or adulteration in the love of the gopis. Therefore, they give Krishna the highest pleasure. Here the word is used, rasabhasa. Gopikara prema nahi rasabhasa dosh atayavo Krishna kare paramashantosh. There's no rasabhas. This is an important thing. And Prabhupada explains in the purport. Rasabhas occurs when one's relationship with Krishna is adulterated. There are different types of rasabhas. First class, second class, and third class. This is all described in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 4.9 point 1 and 2. The words rasa, the word rasa means mellow and abhasa means shadow. If one takes one kind of mellow and something extra is imposed, that is uparasa. If something is derived from the original mellow, it is called anurasa. And if something is appreciated that is far removed from the original mellow, it is called aparasa. Uparasa, anurasa, and aparasa are respectively first, second, and third class rasabhasa, as stated in the Bhakti-rasamrita Sindhu, and he gives some Sanskrit. So this is the same thing. So we're talking about rasabhasa, and the point is that the gopis' love is never infected by this kind of rasabhasa. Lord Sri Krishna, who is the absolute truth, enjoyed his rasa dance every night during the autumn season. He performed this dance in the moonlight and with full transcendental mellows. He used poetic words and surrounded himself with women who were very much attracted to him. This is from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 10:33-25. We are going a little bit over time, so you have to tell me what you want me to do now. Is it time to stop because it's late, or shall I? We've got quite a few more verses, I think, in this chapter.
Yeah, we have 15 more minutes, Prabhu. No problem.
Okay, yeah, because we've got another 100 verses. I'm sorry to say. Actually, I'm happy to say that, but I don't know if we can manage all that. I'll just read until time runs out. Is that right?
Okay, Prabhu.
Okay, so important instructions Srila Prabhupada gives us in this particular passage because it's getting very exalted and confidential. The gopis are all transcendental spirit souls. One should never think that the gopis and Krishna have material bodies. Vrindavan Dham is also a spiritual abode, and there are the days and nights, the trees, the flowers, the water, and everything else, all spiritual. There is not even a trace of material contamination. Krishna, who is the supreme Brahman and supersoul, is not at all interested in anything material. His activities with the gopis are all spiritual and take place within the spiritual world. They have nothing to do with the material world. Lord Krishna's lusty desires and all his dealings with the gopis are on the spiritual platform. One has to be transcendentally realized before even considering relishing the pastimes of Krishna with the gopis. One who is on the mundane platform must first purify himself by following the regulative principles. Only then can he try to understand Krishna and the gopis. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Sri Sarup Damodar Goswami are here talking about the relationship between Krishna and the gopis. Therefore, the subject matter is neither mundane nor erotic. As being a sannyasi, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is very strict in his dealings with women. Unless the gopis were on the spiritual platform, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would have never even mentioned them to Sarup Damodar Goswami. Therefore, these descriptions do not at all pertain to material activity. This is something we all have to learn and remember. He continues, the gopis can be divided into a left wing and a right wing. Both wings induce Krishna to taste transcendental mellows by various manifestations of ecstatic love. Of all the gopis, Srimati Radharani is the chief. She is a jewel mine of ecstatic love and is the source of all purified transcendental conjugal mellows. She is herself Hladini Shakti. There is no pleasure for Lord Krishna without Radharani somehow being involved, either directly or indirectly, because she herself is his Ahladini Shakti. Ahlada means Ananda. There is no happiness for Krishna without Srimati Radharani. This is the point. But Radharani is grown up and her character is equipoised. She's always deeply absorbed in ecstatic love and always feeling in the mood of a left wing mood. As we mentioned earlier, Srila Prabhupada's purport also elaborates, the left wing and right wing of the gopis has been explained by Rupa Goswami in his Ujjvala Nilamani in the Sakhi Prakarana, 26 and 32. The left wing is described in this way. Managrahe sarodyukta tat chaitilye chakopana avidya nayake prayah kura vameti kirtite. A gopi who is always eager to be jealously angered, who is very enthusiastic for that position, and who immediately becomes angry when defeated, who is never under the control of the hero, and who always opposes him, is called Vama, or a left-wing gopi. Srila Rupa Goswami describes the right-wing gopis in this way. Asahyamana nirbante nayake yuktavadini samabhis tena bhityacha dakshina parakirtita. A gopi who cannot tolerate womanly anger, who speaks suitable words to the hero, and who is satisfied by his sweet words, is called a dakshina, or a right-wing gopi. Just for your information. So, because she is a left-wing gopi, Srimati Radharani's womanly anger is always awakening, but Krishna derives transcendental bliss from her activities. And then he quotes, the progress of loving affairs between a young boy and a young girl is by nature crooked, like the movement of a snake. Because of this, two types of anger arise between a young boy and girl, anger with a cause and anger without a cause. This is a quotation from Ujjvala Nilamani again. Shringara Bhed Prakarana, different section. So, Eto Shuni Bade Prabhu, Ananda Shagar, Kaha Kaha Kahe Prabhu, Bole Damodara. As Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard these talks, his ocean of transcendental bliss increased. He therefore told Sarup Damodar, go on speaking, and thus Sarup Damodar continued. Srimati Radharani's love is a highly advanced ecstasy. All her dealings are completely pure and devoid of material tinge. Indeed, her dealings are 10 times purer than gold. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi. As soon as Srimati Radharani gets a chance to see Krishna, her body is suddenly decorated with various ecstatic ornaments. Ashtashatika harakadi vyabhichara jar shahaj prema vimshati bhava alankar. The transcendental ornaments of Srimati Radharani's body include the 8 sattvikas, or the transcendental symptoms, the 33 vyabhichari bhavas, beginning with harsha, or jubilation and natural love, and the 20 bhavas, or ecstatic emotional ornaments. You want to hear them? This is the purport. The 33 vyabhichari bhavas, bodily symptoms manifest in ecstatic love, that is to say, are as follows. Nirveda. I think you all understand these words, so I'm not going to translate. Nirveda, Vishada, Dainya, Glani, that is feeling yourself to be at fault. Shrama, Mada, Gardava, Shanka, Trasa, Avega, Unmada, Apasmara, Vyadhi. Apasmara means forgetfulness. Moha, Mriti or death. Alasya, laziness. Jarya means being catatonic, I guess you would say. Invalidity, Prabhupada writes. Vrida, shame. Avihita, concealment. Smriti, vitarka, chinta. Mati, dhriti, harsha. Autsukya, augriya, that means violence. Somebody who is in ugra bhava. Amarsha, anger. Asuya, jealousy. Chapalya, impudence. Nidra, sleep. Supti, deep sleep. And prabodha, awakening. These are vyabhichari bhavas. These can be temporary symptoms of ecstatic love for Krishna, 33 of them. Text 168. This is an important verse. Kila kinchita kuttamita vilashaladita vivoka muttaita adamabhya chakita. Some of the symptoms critically explained in the following verses are Kila kinchita kuttamita vilasa lalita vivoka mutayita, moktya and chakita. Hard to explain these things, but Prabhupada says, Kila Kinchita is a particular type of ecstatic ornament manifested at the time of seeing Krishna. Kuttamita, a symptom explained in verse 197. We're not there yet, and I'm not going to skip ahead. Many of these, he doesn't actually define them here, so I'm just going to skip ahead. Okay. Text 169, when Srimati Radharani's body manifests the ornaments of many ecstatic symptoms, the ocean of Krishna's happiness immediately displays transcendental waves. Very nice poetry here, isn't it? When Srimati Radharani's body manifests the ornaments of many ecstatic symptoms, the ocean of Krishna's happiness immediately displays transcendental waves. Now, here a description of different ecstasies, beginning with Kila Kinchita. With these ecstatic ornaments, Srimati Radharani enchants the mind of Krishna. This is the point. Why, remember the two questions Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked? Why is it that Jagannath doesn't take Lakshmi to Gundicha with him? Number one. And number two, what has Jagannath done wrong that Lakshmi Devi is angry with him? So here, we're hearing about the ecstatic love of the gopis, and particularly Srimati Radharani. She enchants the mind of Krishna completely. Lakshmi Devi, it would seem from this description, she cannot always do that. And certainly not as much as Srimati Radharani. When Sri Krishna sees Srimati Radharani and wants to touch her body, he prohibits her from going to the spot where one can cross the river Yamuna. In other words, he's stopping. Approaching her, Krishna prohibits Srimati Radharani from picking flowers. He may also touch her in front of her friends. At such times, the ecstatic symptoms of Kila Kinchita are awakened. First, there is jubilation and ecstatic love, which is the root cause of these symptoms. Jubilation. Purport. Whenever Srimati Radharani leaves her house, she's always well-dressed and attractive. It is her womanly nature to attract Sri Krishna's attention, and upon seeing her so attractively dressed, Sri Krishna desires to touch her body. The Lord then finds some fault in her and prohibits her from going to a river crossing and stops her from picking flowers. Such are the pastimes between Srimati Radharani and Sri Krishna. Being a cowherd girl, Srimati Radharani regularly carries milk in a container and often goes to sell the milk on the other side of the Yamuna. To cross the river, she has to pay the boatman, and the spot where the boatman collects his fares is called Danghati. Lord Krishna stops her from going, telling her, first you have to pay the fee, then you will be allowed to go. This is called Dan Keli Lila. Similarly, if Srimati Radharani wants to pick a flower, Krishna claims to be the garden's proprietor and prohibits her. This pastime is called Kila Kinchita. Radharani's shyness arises due to Krishna's prohibitions, and ecstatic loving bodily symptoms called Kila Kinchita Bhava are manifest at this time. These ecstatic symptoms are explained in the following verse, which is from Rupa Goswami's Ujjvala Nilamani. Garvabhilasha Ridata Smitastuya Bhayakradham Shankari Karanam Harshat Uchchate Kila Kinchitam. Definition. Pride, ambition, weeping, smiling, envy, fear, anger are the 7 ecstatic loving symptoms manifested by a jubilant shrinking away. And these symptoms are called Kila Kinchita Bhava. This is Srimati Radharani's unique character. Okay, it's now maybe 10 o'clock and we're getting way over our heads with these topics. So maybe maybe it's time to stop here and ask if there are any questions or any comments.
Yes, Mataji, you can unmute yourself.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. You spoke in the beginning about Sundarachal, Gundicha being equivalent to Vrindavan, and but my question is, how is it that Lakshmi Devi, who has no access to Vrindavan, is able to go to Gundicha and subjugate Lord Jagannath's devotees? And what is the meaning of that?
Well, she goes to Gundicha, that's true, but she cannot get into the Vrindavan pastimes there. Jagannath is performing those pastimes with his associates in her absence. It's a private place. I won't go so far as to say that he doesn't want her around, but it kind of looks that way, doesn't it? So she's angry because the Lord said he would be back, but being distracted by, you know what, he's not returned yet. And so she's going to get him. That's as much as my realization allows me to answer this very confidential matter. I hope that's okay.
And what is the significance of Lakshmi Devi conquering the Lord's associates?
She's angry. She is, after all, the Lord's wife. And these are just servants, household servants. They're her servants as much as they're Jagannath's servants. So that's her position. Servants can be chastised sometimes, and she's doing that. Here she's evidently pretty angry because nobody has seen this before, at least going by what Swarup Damodar Goswami has said. It doesn't usually happen this way, but Lakshmi Devi is manifesting this transcendental anger. She wants to go and get her husband back, bring him back, maybe by the ear.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Is that okay?
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Anything else?
Thank you so much, Prabhu. We are very, very grateful to you, Prabhu, for giving all of this wonderful pastime and so wonderful from Chaitanya Charitamrita, and also we could hear Srila Prabhupada purport so wonderfully, Prabhuji. Thank you for your wonderful association, Prabhuji. Prabhu, we are celebrating the Rath Yatra. You can see here in the video of Anand Rani Devi Dasi Mataji. So that's a Ratha here we have in Kanyadesh this year, because of pandemic we can't celebrate in the hall actually. So right from the day of Rath Yatra, this Ratha is going house to house, where we have Lord Jagannath. And today it is at Ranchod Krishna Prabhu and Anand Rani Devi Mataji house. And today virtually will be taking this opportunity to pull the Ratha. So they're offering the bhoga and pulling the Ratha also, Prabhuji. So we need a blessing, Prabhu, on this occasion, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. So we all together will express our gratitude to Prabhuji for always giving his wonderful association and inspiring all of us through various means and ways. So all together we'll chant Hare Muhammad and Vaishnava Pranam mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Vancha kalpatarubhyasya kripa vacha patitanam pavan vaishnebhyo